There is a moment in every confrontation when one side realizes something is wrong. Not wrong in the tactical sense, not wrong in the strategic sense, wrong in the fundamental sense. The moment when the expected reaction does not arrive. When the other side looks at what you have brought, the fleet, the ultimatum, the assembled power of your civilization, and responds in a way that does not fit any model you have prepared for. The Galactic Conclave had prepared for many responses. They had prepared for resistance. They had prepared for negotiation. They had prepared for desperation, anger, defiance, collapse, and every variation in between. They had prepared for fear most of all, because fear, in their experience, was the most common response to what they were about to show humanity. 47 warships, assembled in orbit above New Geneva Station, the flagship of the Conclave's Outer Reach fleet, a demonstration of force so significant that 3 previous civilizations had begun emergency surrender proceedings before a single weapon was fired. They had prepared for fear. Humanity sent one warship. The ones, and the officer on the bridge looked at 47 Conclave warships the way a person looks at a mild inconvenience on an otherwise unremarkable Tuesday. The Galactic Conclave had not prepared for that. The Galactic Conclave was, depending on who you asked, either the most important diplomatic body in the known galaxy or the most elaborate protection racket ever assembled. The truth, as with most things, was somewhere between the two. They had begun 300 years earlier as a genuine attempt at collective governance. 17 civilizations, a shared council, common rules for trade, transit, and conflict resolution, a reasonable idea executed with reasonable intentions. Over time, the reasonable idea had calcified into something else. The 17 founding civilizations had become 31. The common rules had become a legal framework so dense that navigating it required a staff of specialists. The shared council had developed a permanent bureaucracy that consumed more resources than the combined military of 6 of its member states. And the enforcement mechanism, originally designed to handle genuine disputes, had become something the founding civilizations would not have recognized. The Conclave maintained an outer reach fleet. Officially, its purpose was to ensure compliance with Conclave regulations in systems that were not full members, to investigate violations, to enforce standards. In practice, it was a pressure tool. When a non-member civilization did something that a sufficiently powerful Conclave member found inconvenient, the Outer Reach fleet would appear. It would present a list of alleged regulatory violations. It would suggest, with the weight of 47 warships behind the suggestion, that the civilization in question might want to reconsider its position. It worked because of what the fleet represented, not just the 47 ships, the 31 civilizations behind them, the legal framework, the economic relationships, the accumulated weight of 3 centuries of conclave authority. Most non-member civilizations, when the fleet arrived, understood the message immediately. You are alone, we are not. Compliance is easier than resistance. Humanity was not a conclave member. Humanity had been invited, several times. They had reviewed the membership terms, asked a number of detailed questions, received answers they considered inadequate and declined, politely, thoroughly, with a legal brief attached explaining precisely which membership terms were incompatible with human sovereign interests. The Conclave had found this unusual. Most non-member civilizations wanted membership, the security, the trade access, the legal protections. Humanity had looked at all of it and said, no thank you. The specific incident that prompted the fleet's appearance at New Geneva Station was, in the grand scheme of things, minor. A human commercial consortium had concluded a resource extraction agreement with a small civilization called the Vane. The Vane occupied two systems in a region that the Conclave had designated, without consulting the Vane, who were not members, as a protected development zone. The agreement violated Conclave Regulation 7 Alpha 19. Regulation 7 Alpha 19 was 43 pages long. It had been written primarily by the legal staff of a Conclave founding member that had significant commercial interests in the same region. The Vane had never heard of it. The Human Consortium's legal team had reviewed it, noted that it only applied to Conclave members, and proceeded with the agreement. The Conclave disagreed with this interpretation. Fleet Admiral Tessav-Mora of the Outer Reach Fleet had been dispatched to make the disagreement clear. She arrived at New Geneva Station, the nearest human installation to the disputed region, with 47 warships and absolute confidence in what would happen next. Fleet Admiral Tessav-Mora had conducted 11 deployment operations for the Outer Reach Fleet in her career. The procedure was always the same. Arrive, assemble in formation, open a channel, state the Conclave's position, allow the other side to absorb the visual of 47 warships, wait for compliance. It had never taken more than 4 hours, usually less. She opened the channel to New Geneva Station. The station commander appeared on the screen, a human man, gray-haired, the expression of someone who had been interrupted in the middle of something. Fleet Admiral, he glanced at the tactical display briefly, looked back at her. What can I do for you? Station Commander. Tessav-Mora kept her tone formal, professional. The Galactic Conclave has concerns regarding the commercial agreement recently concluded between the Vane civilization and the Human Arcturus Consortium. The agreement appears to violate Conclave Regulation 7 Alpha 19 as it applies to protected development zones. The commander nodded slowly. I'm aware of the agreement. I'm not aware that Regulation 7 Alpha 19 applies to non-member parties. That is the Conclave's concern, she said. We would like to discuss the matter formally. Of course, he said. I'll flag it for our diplomatic office. Expect a response within, he glanced at something off-screen. Probably 3 weeks, we have some scheduling constraints. Tessav-Mora paused. 3 weeks. Station Commander, she said carefully. I have 47 warships in orbit above your station. I can see that, he said. The Conclave considers this matter urgent. I understand, he said, and will respond as quickly as our schedule allows. 3 weeks, maybe 2 if the relevant people are available sooner. He looked back at his display. Is there anything else? Tessav-Mora stared at him. In 11 deployments, she had never been told to wait 3 weeks. The Conclave, she said with deliberate emphasis, has assembled a significant force to underscore the seriousness of this matter. I noticed, he said, it's a lot of ships for a regulatory dispute. He paused, no offense. She stopped, restarted. The intention of this deployment is to signal the gravity of the Conclave's concern. Signaled, he said pleasantly, we'll be in touch. The channel closed. Tessav-Mora sat in silence on the bridge of her flagship. Her tactical officer cleared his throat. Shall I maintain formation, Admiral? Oh yes, she said. She was going to need a moment. 6 hours later, having received no further communication from New Geneva Station, Tessav-Mora opened the channel again. This time a different human appeared. Younger, a woman in a uniform Tessav-Mora didn't immediately recognize. Fleet Admiral, the woman said, I'm Lieutenant Commander Yeva Park, Station Operations. Commander Haas asked me to let you know that we've forwarded your concerns to the diplomatic office. We expect to have someone available for a preliminary discussion within. I need to speak with someone in authority, Tessav-Mora said. Commander Hawes is the senior authority on the station, Lieutenant Commander Park said. He's currently in a meeting. I can take a message. This is not a matter for messages, Tessav-Mora said. I represent the Galactic Conclave, 31 member civilizations, the assembled legal and military authority of. I understand, Park said. I'll make sure he knows it's urgent. She paused. Was there anything specific you wanted me to pass along or just the general urgency? Tessav-Mora looked at the young human officer for a long moment. She had been at this for 18 years. She had faced angry civilizations, desperate civilizations, civilizations that had thrown everything they had at her fleet in acts of hopeless defiance. She had never been handled like a scheduling problem. Tell him, she said carefully, that the conclave requires a formal response by end of station day today. I'll pass that along, Park said. Thank you, Admiral. The channel closed. Tessav-Mora turned to her senior aide. Get me the full intelligence file on New Geneva Station. Yes, Admiral. A pause. Admiral, the file is fairly thin. The station is a standard class 4 commercial installation. Population 12,000, standard defense array, a small patrol garrison. How small? One warship, Admiral, the UHS Resolute, corvette class. The aide hesitated. It's been docked at the station for the past 11 days undergoing routine maintenance. One warship under maintenance. Against 47. Any indication of response fleet activity? She asked. No, Admiral. Long-range sensors show normal human commercial traffic in the region. No military movement. He paused. Nothing. Tessav-Mora processed this. She had deployed to 11 confrontations. In every case, every single one, the other side had scrambled, called for reinforcements, requested emerge. NCY diplomatic channels. Done something to demonstrate that they understood the weight of the moment. The humans had scheduled a meeting for 3 weeks out and sent a junior officer to take messages. This is a tactic, she said. As admirals, they're making us wait, making us feel small. It's a psychological response designed to, she stopped. Was it? Or was it exactly what it looked like? A station of 12,000 people, and one ship under maintenance that simply did not consider 47 Conclave warships to be an emergency. She wasn't sure which option was more unsettling. At 14:30 station time, the UHS Resolute undocked. Tessav-Mora watched it on her tactical display. It was small, 200 meters, corvette class, designed for patrol work, customs enforcement, light escort duty. It moved away from the station at a modest speed, not toward her fleet, just out into open space. Then it stopped, and it just sat there, between the station and her fleet. It's not threatening, not maneuvering, not targeting. Just a present. One ship. Her tactical officer pulled up its specifications. Standard armament for a corvette. Point defense systems, 2 forward rail cannons, 6 missile tubes. Against 47 warships, it would last approximately 4 seconds in a direct engagement. Open a channel to the Resolute, she said. The channel opened. The officer on the other end was a commander, human, late 30s. He had the specific expression of a man who had been pulled from whatever he was doing. Tessav-Mora would later learn he had been overseeing the maintenance crew's final systems checks and asked to go park in front of a foreign fleet. He did not look concerned. He looked, if anything, mildly put upon. Fleet Admiral, he said, Commander David Cole, UHS Resolute, New Geneva Station asked us to, he glanced to one side as if checking a note. Maintain a visible presence in the area while the diplomatic matter is being processed. He looked back at her. So here we are. Tessav-Mora stared at him. Commander Cole, she said, you are aware that you are one corvette facing 47 warships. Oh, yep, he said. She waited for more. There was no more. And you are comfortable with that situation, she asked. He tilted his head. Is there a reason I shouldn't be? The Conclave fleet is here about a commercial regulation dispute, he said, which our diplomatic office is handling. He leaned back slightly. Is there something specific you needed from us in the meantime, or? I need your government to understand that the Conclave takes this matter seriously. You've got 47 ships in orbit, Cole said. Point received. He glanced at his display. We'll have someone from diplomatic available in, he checked. Looks like 17 days now, actually. They moved some things around. I was told 3 weeks. They expedited it, he said helpfully. Tessav-Mora closed the channel. She sat in silence for a long moment. Admiral, her tactical officer, said quietly, the Resolute hasn't moved. As I know. Oh, it's just sitting there. As I know. She looked at the small ship on her display. 200 meters. One vessel. Parked between her fleet and the station with the energy of something that had been asked to sit in the front of a classroom and didn't particularly mind. Get me Admiral Command on a secure channel, she said. The conversation with Conclave Fleet Command lasted 40 minutes. The first 10 minutes were Tessav-Mora describing the situation, the 3-week meeting timeline, the junior officer, the single corvette, the complete and absolute absence of any recognizable response to the presence of 47 warships. The next 10 minutes were Fleet Command not quite believing her. The following 10 minutes were Fleet Command pulling intelligence files and beginning to understand. The final 10 minutes were the difficult part. They're not afraid, the Conclave's chief of operations said. Not a question. No, Tessav-Mora said. They're not stalling for time, waiting for reinforcements. Long-range sensors show no military movement in the region. Nothing. A long pause. They genuinely don't consider 47 warships an emergency. That is my assessment. Another pause. Why not, the chief asked. What do they have? This was the question. And it was the question no one in the Conclave intelligence services had a good answer to, because humanity had spent considerable effort ensuring that the answer was not visible. What was visible was this. Humanity had 42 colonized systems. They maintained a visible patrol fleet of a few hundred ships. They had a small number of dedicated military installations. Their publicly known military capability was, by any standard analysis, modest. What the Conclave's intelligence services had spent the past 2 weeks attempting to determine, after the deployment order had been given, and before Tessav-Mora arrived, was whether there was something not visible. The conclusion of that analysis was, probably. They've been flagged in our long-term assessments, the chief said. There have been incidents, the Sorvan, the Delon, the Crueth. I read the files, Tessav-Mora said. The files describe civilizations that attacked human interests and ceased to exist as functioning entities within 1 to 2 years. Oh yes. We assessed those incidents as escalating responses to extreme provocation, not a baseline capability. I know, she paused. I'm not sure that assessment is correct. Silence on the channel. What are you saying? The chief asked. I'm saying that a civilization sends one ship and a board expression when either they have nothing or they have so much that 47 warships simply don't register as a threat. She looked at the Resolute, still sitting there, still not moving. Station Commander Hawes didn't look at our fleet and calculate. He glanced at it and went back to his meeting. That's not ignorance. That's either extraordinary confidence or extraordinary preparation. Or both. Or both, she agreed. The chief was quiet for a long moment. What do you recommend? He asked. She had been thinking about this since the first channel closed. I recommend, she said carefully, that we resolve the Regulation 7 Alpha 19 dispute through standard diplomatic channels, without the fleet. With the draw. Redeploy, she said, to routine patrol positions. Frame it as the initial consultation phase being complete and formal diplomatic engagement commencing. The optics. The optics of staying are worse, she said flatly. Every day we sit here while a corvette parks in front of us and their diplomatic office reschedules meetings, we look smaller, not them. Another long pause. You think they knew that would happen, the chief said, when they sent the corvette. She thought about Commander Cole, his mild expression, the way he'd looked at his notes before telling her about the expedited timeline. I think, she said, that they've had this conversation before, maybe not with us specifically, but they've thought through what happens when a fleet shows up and they respond with a single ship, what it looks like, what it communicates. That they're not afraid. That they have nothing to be afraid of, she said, which is different. The Conclave fleet redeployed 48 hours later. The official statement described it as the opening phase of formal diplomatic engagement with human authorities regarding the Vane Development Zone question. Nobody believed the official statement. In the regional diplomatic community, what had happened at New Geneva Station spread through back channels within days. The story was almost always the same. The Conclave had shown up with 47 warships, and humanity had sent a corvette under maintenance and a man who needed to check his notes. The reaction varied by audience. Some found it funny. The image of a corvette sitting serenely in front of 47 warships had a particular quality that transcended politics. Others found it alarming, not the corvette, the implication of the corvette. The Conclave's intelligence services spent 3 months after the incident conducting the most thorough analysis of human military capability they had ever attempted. The conclusions were classified at the highest level and shared only with the Executive Council. The summary was short. Visible human military capability, modest. Estimated actual capability, unknown but assessed as substantially larger than visible. Basis for assessment, pattern analysis of historical responses to hostile action. Each response has been larger than the last by an order of magnitude, suggesting either A, a force structure that scales with perceived need, or B, a force structure that has always been present and is revealed incrementally. Option B is assessed as more likely. Practical implication. The Conclave cannot verify what humanity has. What we can verify is how humanity behaves. Their behavior in every documented incident with hostile parties is consistent with a civilization that has, at minimum, sufficient capability to absorb a first strike and respond overwhelmingly. Whether they have more than that is unknown. Recommendation. Do not conduct further fleet deployments to human space or human-adjacent systems without substantially greater intelligence on actual capability. The Executive Council read the summary. They filed it. They did not conduct further fleet deployments to human space. Commander David Cole received a commendation when he returned to port 3 weeks later. Routine language, outstanding performance of duties. He accepted it with the expression of a man who had parked in front of a foreign fleet for 48 hours and found the whole thing mildly interesting. He was asked at a station debrief whether he had ever been concerned. He thought about it. Not really, he said, they were theirs. About a trade regulation. They had 47 warships, the debriefing officer said. Yeah, he shrugged. Seemed like a lot for a trade regulation. Did you know what our actual response capability was, if it had escalated? He was quiet for a moment. Not specifically, he said, but I knew it was enough. How did you know? He thought about how to explain it. I've been in the service for 12 years, he said. I've read the incident files, Sorvon, Dellen, Crueth, others, he paused. Every time someone takes a real swing at us, what comes back is more than they expected, every single time. Well, so you trusted that? I trusted that, he said. Whatever they brought, we had enough to make them regret it. That's been true every time it's ever been tested. He paused. Why would this time be different? The debriefing officer wrote that down. It was, she thought, a remarkably clear-eyed way to describe a culture's relationship with its own military capability. Not bravado, not ignorance. Just trust built on evidence. 3 months after the incident, a political science journal published an analysis of what had come to be called, in academic circles, the New Geneva Response. The analysis was written by a non-human academic, a Sorath political theorist named Vaynata who specialized in deterrence theory and had spent 20 years studying human strategic behavior. The key passage was quoted widely. The standard model of military deterrence assumes that a larger force deters a smaller force through the credible threat of destruction. The defending party, facing an overwhelming force, rationally calculates that resistance is more costly than compliance. The New Geneva Response represents a departure from this model that has significant implications for how we understand human strategic culture. When the Conclave fleet arrived with 47 warships, the rational human response, under the standard model, was to either comply or to demonstrate sufficient defensive capability to make the cost of attack unacceptable, to match the signal with a countersignal. Instead, humanity sent a single corvette under maintenance and scheduled a meeting for 3 weeks out. This is only rational under one condition: if the cost of the fleet's presence is assessed as zero, not low, zero. A civilization assesses the cost of a hostile fleet as zero only if it is confident that whatever the fleet does next, the outcome is acceptable, either because the fleet will not act, or because if it does act, the response will be sufficient. The New Geneva Response was not a bluff. It was a statement of confidence. Not in the corvette was irrelevant, in whatever lies behind the corvette. We do not know what lies behind the corvette. That is precisely the point. The most effective deterrent is not one that shows everything. It is one that shows enough to make you uncertain about what you haven't seen. New Geneva showed a corvette and a bored expression. It implied everything else. The Galactic Conclave, in retreating, demonstrated that the implication was sufficient. This is the lesson. Humanity does not need to show its full capability to deter. It needs only to behave as though the full capability exists, consistently, calmly, without theater. The bored expression is not weakness. It is the most powerful signal a civilization can send. It says, you are not a problem we have to solve today. On New Geneva Station, Commander Haas finished his meeting, the one he had been in when Tessav-Mora first called and reviewed the debrief summary. He had been in a budget meeting, routine maintenance allocations, the kind of meeting that happened every quarter and was not, in any meaningful sense, more interesting than 47 warships in orbit. But it also was not less interesting. The conclave had come about a commercial regulation dispute. His diplomatic office was handling it. His job as station commander was to ensure the station ran normally until the diplomatic office resolved it. So he had gone back to his meeting. He read the debrief summary, noted the conclave's withdrawal, noted the diplomatic office's assessment that a negotiated resolution on the Vane development zone was likely within 6 months. Well, he filed it. Well, he went to his next meeting. Outside where the Resolute had parked for 48 hours, space was empty again. Quiet. The commercial traffic moving through the station's approach lanes, supply ships, passenger transports, freight convoys. Normals, as it should be, as it almost always was. And somewhere in the dark between the stars, in places no conclave sensor had ever reached, things sat quietly and waited. Not impatiently, not nervously. The way a thing waits when it has been built for a specific purpose and trusts that the purpose is understood. The galaxy slowly was learning to understand it. To understand what it meant when humanity looked at a fleet and sent one ship. What it means. When they barely looked up. What it meant when 47 warships were, to them, a scheduling inconvenience. It meant we are not afraid of you. It meant we have never needed to be. It meant whatever you are imagining we have. You are probably not imagining enough.